Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review. In this video I'm going to review Pray For by Alice Glass. After years of anticipation, this is the highly awaited debut full-length album of Alice Glass, which was also an album that I did highly anticipate for, and after a series of many singles, especially towards the previous year, we finally get the first full-length album of Alice Glass. Now, Alice Glass was mostly known in the past for being a member and vocalist on Crystal Castles, which was definitely one of the most significant and one of the most influential electronic groups of the late 2000s and early 2010s. Their first albums have been considered extremely important and have also been influential for so many artists and especially for the creation of the genre witch house as well. But a few years back, Alice Glass took the brave stance to come out and release a post with a list of heavy and serious allegations of sexual assault and manipulation and many other things from the other member of Crystal Castles, Ethan Kath, which I remember reading almost at the same point that it came out, and for the time it was actually one of the very first stories that I've read of someone coming out as a victim of sexual assault, and I don't remember the details, but I do remember having some really shocking stuff in it, like there are lots of heavy and easily triggering parts throughout this whole post. Dealing with this type of trauma is something that I cannot imagine, and it certainly must be hard to endure, and a situation that cannot just be easily forgotten. And even if fortunately she's not in that position anymore and has moved on with her life, mentally this is an inescapable situation. This is something that is gonna be rooted for the rest of your life. So it ends up being quite understandable that the recurring theme out of this album has to deal with this particular trauma. And this shocking and dark memories of the past is a theme that carries throughout most of the album, if not the entirety of the album. So this lyrically and thematically ends up being a quite personal release, which, like I said, I feel that it's understandable coming from that position, and it's something that you basically get with music as well. It is this really dark and haunting album that can be quite heavy at times, and you can see elements of frustration, and at times it can be a bit of an uncomfortable listen, especially if you are someone who has suffered into a kind of similar trauma. This might not really be the album for you if you're easily triggered by stuff like this. Now, there is not something that much deep or thought-provoking about this album with its lyricism. It's mostly pretty straightforward, and it has been a theme that we saw with some of the singles like Fair Game and Suffer and Swallow, so it's mostly understandable that we see it being a recurring theme into this whole project. With all that being said, in regards to the music, this is basically an electropop release that for the most part it's quite dark. It kinda be a bit haunting at times, and you have elements of aggression and other moments that would end up feeling much more soothing. There are very few portions where you could see some elements of witch house, but it's definitely not the main focus in this particular project. Also, I feel that some of the glitch portions throughout this project end up feeling kinda intriguing. This is something that we get into a few occasions, with some of the percussion elements being heavily distorted and having this glitch aura to them. This is something that we get with the intro, with the track Pray, which towards the second half it has those intriguing portions with the beats that are kinda loud and glitchy and add to this haunting feel, and in my opinion it made for a pretty decent introduction. And then this follows with a track Pinned Beneath Limbs, which for me it makes for one of the most intriguing moments in terms of what it offers instrumentally, with some of the portions having a really dark and haunting feel to them, and just mainly being a pretty intriguing idea with how it experiments. This track in particular though was one of the shortest moments, and I would feel that it would benefit even more if it was even more developed, which leads to a point that I feel I have a bit of an issue with, as there are a lot of short tracks over here that don't necessarily feel that much fleshed out, and even if you have some fleshed out material, they end up becoming a bit repetitive. I feel that this was kind of the issue with the track Everybody Else, even though it ended up being one of the greatest moments in my opinion, mainly because it is a fleshed out song. It is the longest one over here, and it feels like a song that is kinda well structured. The pacing though is kinda slow and it's a bit repetitive, but it ends up having some of the most infectious moments throughout this entire project. In regards to some of the teasers I ended up enjoying enjoying some of them more and more as I would listen to them again, but there were others that I was a bit indifferent towards them as well. Lavish Violence, in my opinion, had the potential to be even better. I didn't really like the beginning of this track. I feel that the instrumental, with the way that it was put together with the vocals, didn't really make for that much of a good touch. I didn't particularly like the vocals out of this track this much. I think what saves the song is its really strong chorus, which I really liked. I feel that it's really powerful. I like how dynamic it is. I think it contains some really good scenes, and I like the overall vibe and the dark elements that it contains. In my opinion, this is the main part that made this song kinda special. For me, Baby Teeth was the most underwhelming single and by far one of my least favorite moments on the album. I didn't particularly enjoy this specific direction of like this synth pop sound that ended up just feeling kind of a basic song. Didn't really have that much of an interesting instrumental in my opinion. I wasn't really feeling that. I thought that it was a kind of forgettable moment, even though it ended up feeling somewhat different in comparison with the rest of the album, as it was somewhat more playful in its sound. I didn't really think that it fitted all that well with the rest of the project. Fair Game is a track that if listened to it sooner, I would actually put it in my list with the top tracks of 2021, because this is a really interesting moment and definitely one of my favorite moments out of Alice Class. I feel that this is a really powerful and solid track. I don't particularly enjoy that much the spoken word vocals and the way they're mixed this loud into the song. However, this chorus is absolutely incredible. Such an infectious chorus, such beautiful melodies, such a great and dark aesthetic and mood, a really solid and powerful song. And there is also the track Suffer and Solo, which in my opinion is another great single that I remember enjoying back when I listened to it for the first time, but it has grown on me. I think that this is a really solid track and definitely one of the most haunting moments. This one in particular really succeeds on creating this dark atmosphere to it, and I think that this also contains some of the greatest vocal inflections throughout this whole album. I actually ended up enjoying many elements out of this song. In regards to the rest of the album though, I would say that as an overall experience, I enjoyed it. I think that it's a quite solid and quite intriguing album. I think though that it had the potential for even more. I was actually looking forward to more than just that. I think that we simply got a pretty good album, but I do believe that it had room for even more than just that, because at the end of the day, it is a bit of a mess of an album when it comes to the instrumentals, and some of them I think that they would benefit if they had more of a punch to them. This album lacks intensity, especially towards the end, and I get that there are some soothing atmospheres over here, but for the most part there are some instrumentals that ended up feeling kinda generic and not really providing that much as a gratifying experience. And like I said, I feel that some of the track lengths don't really give the song justice. For example, with the track Suffer in Peace, cool trap instrumental, digging its mood, but it's less than 2 minutes long. There is not really that much to it. Then there are tracks like The Hunted, which it's not one of my favorite ideas, but I do appreciate the intensity out of it with the vocals and the instrumentals, which is something that I feel that it's kinda lacking with some moments when we get to the second half of this album, and especially towards the end, with tracks like I Trusted You, kinda soothing and cool track, but not really feeling it, especially towards the end of the album. I think that it ends up feeling a bit boring and not really creating the greatest impression out of me, and kind of the same with the outro of this, Sorrow Ends, which I mean it's a cool outro, I like the aesthetics out of it, but it's just an outro at the end of the day. There's not something more special about it. And I think that one of the most underwhelming moments ended up being the track Witch Hunt. Cool song, but not something that I would see myself returning to. And like I said, there are some cool moments over here. There are tracks that I enjoyed. I think that for the most part the album is pretty solid. Now at the end of the day, this is more of a statement. This is a personal album for Alice Class, coming out bravely with her story of abuse and manipulation and putting all of those dark and twisted emotions on an album, which by itself it manages to invoke those emotions, but in my opinion, at some occasions, musically, it could have been even more powerful. It could have been even more compelling than just that. In my opinion, there was potential for even more. Still, with what we get, I think that this is a pretty solid debut album that was worth the wait. I'm gonna give Pray For a 7- out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.